So let's move on to futility. The futility argument is most aptly stated in French. Plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. In the context of our discussion, the futilists claim that participation in sustainable development strategies does nothing to move us toward greater sustainability because the participation has no impact on actual decisions. Involving more participants may make people feel more involved, but it is cold comfort as their participation does not change the underlying power and decision-making structures. In this vein, we reference the body of literature on formulaic participation, which argues that the innovations in the means and modes of participation are ineffective at breaking through the inequalities that exist between groups in the modern city. And in fact, they usually only serve to reinforce these inequalities and constraints to new thinking or behaviors or shared experiences and perceptions. The thrust of most of the literature evaluating the impacts of public participation in planning processes suggests that, regardless of the approach used, participation has limited efficacy in changing policy. In fact, most such processes are doomed to ineffectiveness in this sense, as most have only addressed issues outside the context of an actual policy decision. Some researchers even go so far as to present evidence that participants in public processes are willingly and knowingly wasting their time. Hayes, in 2007, found that more than double the citizens he interviewed cited personal commitment as the factor that kept them involved in public processes than those who cited seeing the positive results of their actions. If engagement does not affect policy and cannot be expected to improve government-citizen relationships, what good does it serve? The futility argument with regard to sustainable development goes beyond a disdain for public participation, however. It can be seen across the spectrum of sustainability initiatives that, for example, cut down forests and fragment ecosystems in order to build neighborhoods that are labeled to be close to nature and environmentally sensitive. And I should say that this slide that we started with on the Perversity frame was taken about 6 months ago during the early phases of construction of Southeast Falls Creek, which I guess you'll be bombasted by CTV in a few months with in its built-out phase as the athletes village for the 2010 Winter Olympics. So heralded as one of the most sustainable neighborhoods in the world, and yet still a massive piece of construction and waste generation. So here, and we can examine another example, also from the Vancouver region. This is the new phase of the British properties development in West Vancouver, so on the north shore of Burrard Inlet, which is planned as the future Rogers Creek area to encompass sustainable development principles and practices such as green building, environmental enhancement and restoration, parks and trails, housing density and diversity. And I don't know about you, but it strikes me, it rings a little bit hollow to see all of these advances on the ground as being promoting sustainable development and what is currently outlined in yellow here in intact forest on a very steep slope. We could also cite our successful efforts to increase recycling, but nonetheless don't quite keep pace with the increasing quantity of garbage being produced. And so here's a figure, again from the Metro Vancouver Sustainability Indicators report from last year, showing that Vancouver is doing a great job of recycling, over 50% of our waste stream. However, our waste stream still is increasing. So moving on to jeopardy. So by now we've heard that sustainability efforts may backfire, and they may be no more than so much spinning of wheels. Next and finally, we consider the possibility that what is going on in the emergence of a dominant sustainable development paradigm is truly diabolical. What if we continue on the path towards sustainable development as the framework for planning and policy, only to wake up one day down the road to find that all of our hard-won environmental and social safeguards have been lost, as we have abandoned these sectoral victories in the name of a more holistic, integrative goal. The jeopardy argument asserts that emphasis on the holism and integrative nature of sustainable development is a way to avoid going deeply into the protections needed to preserve any single element that might be in need of protection, a particular particular species, a sacred native site, a historic building. Here we cannot help but enter somewhat into the definitional debate around sustainability, and in particular the debate regarding strong versus weak formulations of sustainability. This distinction was a contribution made by the UK-based environmental economist David Pearce, whose interpretation of the Brundtland definition of sustainable development was that each generation should pass on at least the same stock of capital to the subsequent one. He considered it naive to propose that economic activity never damaged the natural environment, and proposed the distinction of different types of capital and identification of some capital types as non-substitutable, as a way to ensure the non-declining resources and human welfare over generations. Weak sustainability does not recognize non-substitutable capital stocks, looking only at the single amalgamated bottom line of changes to manufactured, human, social, and natural capitals. Strong sustainability presumes some critical natural capital stocks that are required for welfare and entails the physical protection of certain absolute levels of natural capital which cannot be substituted without provoking major and unpredictable system perturbations. As vanguard and outlandish as this strong versus weak sustainability distinction made Pearce in the community of economists, subjecting this concept to the real world of sustainability policy evolution reveals that strong sustainability is a concept that has yet to find its way to political palatability. This is where the jeopardy argument comes in. A jeopardy analysis of an attempt at integrative sustainability work would ask, do we really know how to plan and act in an integrative way toward win-win-win solutions? Or is a sectoral analysis of trade-offs the best means we have to protect that which we cannot afford to lose? Here, we can turn to the growing practice of corporate, social, and sustainability reporting that seeks to track and report on a triple bottom line of results in financial, social, and environmental accounts. Typical practice amongst these corporations pioneering in this field is to consider social and environmental impacts as adjustments, downward adjustments usually, to financial performance. For example, Chinese President Hu Jintao's green GDP that adjusted GDP for each region in China based on the cost of environmental cleanup. And it's worth noting that although he introduced this as something that would become an annual report for each of the regions back to the head of state in China, he canceled it after the second year because the calculation actually made certain regions of China to have a negative GDP. And this was seen as politically completely impossible. The nexus point of environmental, social, and economic bottom lines remains entirely theoretical. And that is depicted in this report from PricewaterhouseCoopers, which is one corporation that is attempting to conduct triple bottom line analysis. So what they're showing here is that today there are, in essence, three bottom lines. There's a financial bottom line, a social bottom line, and an environmental bottom line. The financial bottom line, of course, is the one that all corporations report on, and that is key to their stock value and to the results that they're reporting out to their stakeholders. Environmental bottom line usually means accordance with international standards set, for example, by the International Standards Organization. And the social bottom line typically refers to how they treat their employees, sometimes the communities in which they operate as well. Recognition of the limitations of this kind of practice, in essence, they're coming up with three sets of numbers that can't really be amalgamated in any way because they're using different metrics, right? They're putting different things, it's apples and oranges. Has led some companies, like PricewaterhouseCoopers shown here, to aspire towards a new view of financial performance that is constituted by multiple accounts beyond the simply economic. And so this is the prospective future view of what they hope they will be able to generate by way of a financial performance figure that has value-creating activities across a full spectrum of environmental, social, human resources, and etc. Figures.